The courtroom is cold, fluorescent lights, beige walls. I'm sitting at a table watching my father's lawyer shuffle papers. My hands are folded. My face is calm. But inside, I'm timing this moment the way you time a perfect knife strike. The judge looks up. The estate has been distributed according to the will filed in 2019, she says, not looking at me. The primary assets, the family company, the property holdings, and the investment accounts have been designated to the eldest son and the eldest daughter. I don't move. The youngest beneficiary receives the residential house valued at. I already know the number, $230,000. A house built in 1987 with plumbing from the 1970s. Meanwhile, my brother just inherited a manufacturing empire worth $47 million. My sister got the commercial real estate portfolio. I got the house my father always complained about. The lawyer looks at me, expecting tears or anger. I give him nothing. I turn my head slightly and meet my father's will executor, my Uncle Robert, directly in the eyes. He's the one who called the will fair. The one who told me over coffee that your father always knew you were the independent one. He wanted to make sure your siblings stayed protected. I smile at him, just barely. His jaw tightens. That's when he should have known. But men like Uncle Robert don't read women like me. None of them do. Part 2, her normal life 6 minutes. 4 years earlier. I'm 28 years old, sitting in a cubicle at Morrison & Associates, a mid-size marketing firm downtown. My desk is organized. I have 3 photos. One of my parents at their anniversary dinner, one of my brother graduating law school, one of my sister at her engagement party. I'm not in any of them. This is not something I dwell on. My job is solid, $60,000 a year, health insurance, a 401k that grows 1% a year. I work on social media campaigns for local businesses. I'm good at it. I understand the psychology of what makes people click, what makes them trust. I've read Cialdini twice. I've watched competitors' strategies until I can predict their next move. My boss, Martin, is standing over my desk right now. He's telling me about a new account, a medical device company that needs a digital overhaul. He wants me on it. He's offering me the lead. You're the smartest person on my team, he says. This is how he compliments me. I nod. I don't thank him. I don't smile too wide. I've learned that when you're a woman in a room full of ambitious people, gratitude reads as weakness. It reads as surprise, as if you didn't expect to be valued. So I don't express surprise. I express competence. I'll start Monday, I tell him. He walks away satisfied. That evening, I drive to my parents' house. It's a sprawling Victorian in the suburbs, the kind my father took out a second mortgage to renovate in the 90s. He wanted people to know he'd made it, that he'd built something real. My mother is in the kitchen. She's 71 and still makes Sunday dinners for the whole family. She wraps her arms around me from the side, which is her way of showing affection without making it too obvious. How was work? She asks. They're giving me a new account. Of course they are. She says this the way mothers say things when they've always known you were capable. Your father will want to hear about it. My father is in his study. This room is sacred. My siblings and I learned early that we don't enter without knocking. He's sitting at his desk, reading a document related to the company. He's built Henderson Manufacturing from nothing, started in a garage when he was 25. Now it's a regional supplier of precision components for automotive factories. He's my entire model for what smart looks like. Hey, Dad. He looks up and smiles. This is the smile I chase. This is the expression I've spent my whole life trying to earn. There's my girl. How's the marketing world treating you? I tell him about the medical device account. I tell him about my strategy. I tell him the numbers I think we can achieve in the first quarter. He listens. He leans back in his chair. He nods at all the right moments. You should do this, he says finally. Do what? Start your own thing. You're smart enough. I laugh. I assume he's not being serious. But he is. I'm not joking, he continues. You understand people, you understand strategy. You're wasted at that firm, you're making someone else rich. I want to believe him, but I also know my father. I know how he talks about risk. I know he's never once offered to help my siblings with money, even when they needed it. Belief doesn't come with investment in our family. It never has. Maybe someday, I tell him. He shrugs and goes back to his document. My mother calls us to dinner. My brother, David, is already there with his wife, Michelle. My sister, Catherine, arrives with her fiancé, Robert Jr., Uncle Robert's son. The table is full. The conversation is loud. I'm quiet, I watch, I listen. And I notice something I've never articulated before. My father talks more to the men at the table. He asks David about cases at his law firm. He discusses market trends with Robert Jr., who works in finance. Catherine mentions her interior design business, and he compliments her taste without asking about the business itself. He doesn't ask me anything. Later, when I'm leaving, my mother walks me to the car. Your father meant what he said about starting your own company, she tells me quietly. He was just being nice. No, she grips my shoulder. He knows you. He sees you. He just doesn't know how to say it without sounding like he doubts everything he built. I hug her. I believe her, the way you believe your mother when she's the one person who's always believed in you first. Part 3, Betrayal 6:12 minutes. The call comes on a Tuesday morning. My father is in his office. He has a heart attack at his desk. He's dead before the paramedics arrive. I'm in a meeting when David calls. I can't hear him over the music in my headphones until I take them out. Then his words hit like a wall I didn't see coming. Dad's gone. Heart attack. Mom's at the hospital. I don't cry in that meeting. I don't cry in my car. I cry in the hospital bathroom where no one will see. The funeral is in 4 days. The will reading is 2 weeks after that. During those 2 weeks, I stay at my parents' house. My mother is sedated half the time. The other half, she's making funeral arrangements and starring at nothing. David is handling logistics. Catherine is coordinating with the funeral home and checking on Mom constantly. I'm cleaning. I know this looks like grief work, but it's not. It's what I do when I need to think. I dust my father's study. I organize his books. I sort through the filing cabinet in his desk while my mother sleeps. That's where I find the letters. There are 5 of them, dated over the past 6 months. They're from a woman named Victoria Chen. They're not sexually explicit, but they're intimate in the way that matters. They're the kind of letters you write when you've stopped being careful about what you reveal. Your work obsession is a shield, Victoria writes in one of them. You're afraid of being known the way I know you. My father, David Henderson, a man who worked 70-hour weeks and built an empire and came home to my mother for 54 years, was having an affair. I photograph each letter on my phone. I put them back exactly as they were. 2 days before the will reading, I find something else in the filing cabinet. It's a handwritten will. Dated January 2023, just 6 months ago. It says something different. In this version, the company goes to David and Catherine, as planned. But I'm left 15% of the company's annual profits. Not ownership, but income. Significant income, enough to build something. It's dated January 14th, 2023. There's a post-it note attached in my father's handwriting. See lawyer about this. Fix the new one. He never sent it. The will that was filed, the one my Uncle Robert produced at the reading, is dated March 2019. 4 years older. From before my father met Victoria. From before he decided his younger daughter might deserve something real. I photograph this will too. Then I put everything back. At the will reading, Uncle Robert explains the distribution with the tone of someone delivering bad news that isn't his fault. David sits next to him, already comforting, being the good son who isn't getting more than his fair share. Catherine looks surprised, then grateful, then sympathetic toward me. Your father knew you were independent, Uncle Robert says. It's the same line he'll use in court later. I ask one question. How many wills did my father create? Uncle Robert and David exchange a look. Just the one we filed, Uncle Robert says. It's a small lie, a cleanable lie if I ever need to prove it. But I don't need to prove it yet. Part 4, Pressure and Humiliation, 12-20 minutes. The house is mine, but it's a trap wearing a gift's face. The roof needs replacing, $60,000 to do properly. The HVAC system fails in my first winter living there, $22,000. The pipes burst, $15,000 in water damage. By June of that year, I've used 30% of my inheritance on repairs that should have been disclosed when I accepted the house. I'm angry, but I'm learning to think like someone who understands leverage. I go to see a lawyer. His name is Robert Chen, no relation to Victoria, I learn. He listens to my story with the expression of someone who's heard variations of it 100 times. He tells me that without the newer will, I have no legal standing. He could have changed it back, Chen explains. The fact that he wrote another version doesn't prove intent. It just proves he was considering options. He never sent it, I say. Exactly. He didn't file it. He didn't update his original will. Legally, the filed will stands. What if I can prove he wanted to change it? What if he wrote notes about it? Robert Chen leans back in his chair. Do you have those notes? I don't. My father always kept things private. The idea of photographing a handwritten note and then lying about where I got it, that crosses a line. I'm not that version of myself. Not yet. Then we don't have a case, Chen says gently. I'm sorry. I leave his office and sit in my car in the parking lot for an hour. This is the moment many women would break. I don't. Instead, I think, my father's company needs to name a new CEO. David is a lawyer, not a business operator. Catherine has her design firm. The board meets in 3 weeks to decide who leads Henderson Manufacturing. My Uncle Robert, the same man who delivered the old will, sits on the board. So does my brother-in-law, Robert Jr. David doesn't. This is important. The next day, I call my brother. We meet at a coffee shop. David looks exhausted. He's managing the estate, dealing with taxes, comforting our mother, and trying to maintain his law practice. I wanted to ask you something, I tell him. He listens. I know the company needs a new CEO. I'm wondering if you'd consider hearing someone external, someone strong, someone who understands the business. David blinks. Why would I hire someone external? The natural choice is to bring in someone from the board. Because Uncle Robert is on the board and he's never actually run a manufacturing operation. Robert Jr. is in finance, not operations. And if you look at the last 5 years of the company's growth, it's slowed. Dad was aging. He was distracted. This is all true. I know someone who could scale that business, I continue. I know what would modernize the supply chain, what would diversify the customer base, what would make Henderson Manufacturing relevant in the next decade. David studies me. You're talking about yourself. No, I'm talking about someone I know. This is technically not a lie. Who? I give him a name, James Mitchell, a consultant I've read about in trade publications. Brilliant operator, scaled 3 manufacturing companies. David promises to mention it to the board. The board, of course, has already decided. They're bringing in Robert Jr. to the CEO role with Uncle Robert as executive advisor. It's announced the following week. This is when the humiliation starts. Robert Jr. has always been nice to me the way powerful people are nice to people they don't take seriously. He's charming. He's friendly. He's also ruthless about protecting his position. 2 months into his leadership, he starts dismantling things. He consolidates my father's executive team. 2 people retire early, 3 are let go. The company culture shifts overnight. Suddenly everything is optimized. Costs are cut. The customer service department is outsourced. Clients start leaving. I watch this happen from the outside, and I'm not angry. I'm taking notes. By month 4, Henderson Manufacturing has lost 6 major accounts. The profit margin has dropped 12%. The stock value, which should be split between David, Catherine, and the company's employees, has declined $20 million. When I see my brother at a family gathering, he's stressed beyond measure. The board is asking questions. The employees are asking questions. My mother is asking questions. "What happened to Dad's company?" she says to me quietly while Catherine is in the kitchen. "Robert Jr. happened," I tell her. She knows I'm right. She's watched a lifetime of business decisions. She understands the difference between a good operator and someone who inherits a throne he doesn't know how to sit on. "Why didn't your father train David?" she asks. "Because Dad probably didn't think David wanted it." She nods. She's sad in a way that goes deeper than grief. Then something worse happens. Robert Jr. discovers that my father had a second account, a private investment account that my Uncle Robert apparently knew about. When the estate was being settled, this account was somehow missed. Now it needs to be claimed and divided. The account has $420,000 in it. Under the will, my share is $0. My brother gets $210,000. My sister gets $210,000. My Uncle Robert, as the executor, files paperwork to close the account and distribute accordingly. But there's a problem. The account was opened in 2015, just 6 months after my father had an argument with David about whether he was a real lawyer or just doing family law for suburban clients. That same year, my father had another argument with Catherine about whether she was taking the easy road by marrying into money instead of building something herself. Both of them. Never me. Instead, my father opened this secret account. The deposit notes, when I request them through Discovery, Robert Chen helped me file a formal request, show one single transaction, $200,000 deposited in March 2015. And then nothing. For 8 years, the money sits in that account, growing interest. 8 years while my father built the company. 8 years while he watched his older children's lives. 8 years while he never asked me why I was still working a cubicle job. I think he was saving it for me. I think he wanted to give it to me when I was ready. But he ran out of time. And my Uncle Robert, who knew about this account, who had access to my father's private files, who executed the will, that same Uncle Robert who told me I was independent and didn't need protection, he didn't mention this account to me. He assumed I wouldn't ask questions. When Robert Chen sends a letter requesting clarification about how the executor found this account, there's no response for 3 weeks. Then a lawyer hired by my Uncle Robert responds, "The account distribution is final. The beneficiaries have been paid. There are no further questions to address." 54 years of my father's life. And they're telling me there are no further questions. Part 5, Silent Transformation, 20-26 minutes. I stop crying. Specifically, I stop allowing myself to cry. There's a difference. The first kind is emotion. The second kind is a choice to feel nothing that isn't useful. I wake up the morning after reading that lawyer's letter, and something inside me reorganizes. It's not that I don't feel the betrayal anymore. It's that I feel it differently now. It's not sad. It's heavy. It's like holding something that weighs 1,000 pounds and deciding that holding it is exactly what you're built for. I call in sick to Morrison and Associates. I don't go back for 4 months. During those 4 months, I let my apartment lease expire. I move into my father's house, the one everyone thought was a consolation prize. I spend $15,000 on it, but I do it strategically. I upgrade the home office into something that looks like a business command center. I get a second laptop. I start reading. I read everything I can find about Henderson Manufacturing. I download 5 years of their financial records from public filings. I read about Robert Jr. I read about my Uncle Robert. I read about the board members, their backgrounds, their other investments, their vulnerabilities. I find that Robert Jr. has a gambling problem. It's carefully hidden, but not hidden from someone who knows how to look at casino charge records and quarterly financial dips that correlate directly to weekend trips to Atlantic City. I find that one of the board members has a daughter who went to the same university I did, and he's apparently been using corporate expense accounts to fund her lifestyle without reporting it to the IRS. I find that my Uncle Robert has been using his position as executor to funnel consulting fees to a company his daughter owns, a company that does literally no work for the estate, but somehow bills $50,000 over 18 months. I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm reading public documents. I'm cross-referencing information that's available to anyone. But I'm doing it with the focus of someone who has nothing but time and absolute clarity about what she's looking for. I also start something else. I reach out to James Mitchell, the CEO consultant I mentioned to my brother. I don't tell him why. I just tell him I'm interested in the manufacturing sector and wonder if he'd consider doing a consulting call. He's intrigued by my questions. I ask about supply chain vulnerabilities. I ask about how to identify when a company is being run into the ground. I ask about the signs of financial mismanagement that don't show up on balance sheets until it's too late. He answers because I ask smart questions. And then I ask him something else. What if you were brought in to save a company that's already failing? What's the first thing you'd look at? The person running it, he says immediately. Because companies don't fail, people do. We talk for 2 hours. At the end of the call, I tell him about Henderson Manufacturing. I tell him about my father. I tell him what's happened in the 4 months since Robert Jr. took over. I don't tell him about the inheritance. I don't make myself the victim. Instead, I make it sound like a technical problem I've observed from the outside. That company is worth saving, I tell him, but it won't be saved by the people currently running it. Do you want me to review their financials? He asks. Not yet, I tell him. First, I need to know if you'd ever consider actually taking it on, if someone could rebuild the board and give you full operational control. Who's someone? He asks. That's what I'm still figuring out, I tell him. Part 6, Secret Preparation, 26:32 minutes. I've been preparing for this conversation for 6 months. I have lawyers lined up. Robert Chen knows what I'm doing now, and he's not happy about it, but he's also one of the smartest people I've met, and I've hired him to prepare the legal strategy. I have a business plan drafted, not as a fantasy, as a real blueprint for taking back my father's company. I have $43,000 saved from my old job. I've liquidated my savings account. I've taken a personal loan against the house. I'm risking everything on the premise that my father would have wanted this. I'm also lying to people. When I run into Catherine at the grocery store, I tell her I'm working on a consulting project for a healthcare company. It's not untrue, exactly. I'm doing contract work, low-level social media management for a dermatology clinic. It's $500 a month. It's enough to justify why I'm suddenly busy all the time. When my mother asks why I'm not dadding anymore, I tell her I'm focused on work. When David asks if I'm okay, I tell him I'm going through a phase of wanting to be alone. All of these things are true in a technical sense. But the real truth is that I'm planning to go to war with my family. And I can't let anyone know until I'm ready. By month 8 of this preparation, I have something else. A contact, a journalist named Sarah Marcus who covers business news. She found me through a blog post I wrote, anonymously, using a VPN about corporate governance failures in family businesses. She reaches out to me through encrypted email. I read your piece, she writes. I think you understand something about board accountability that most people miss. I'm working on a story about corporations run by unqualified family members. Would you be interested in background conversation? I meet with her at a coffee shop in the city, 3 towns over from where anyone knows me. I bring documents, not original documents, I'm not stupid, but photocopies of public filings with certain numbers highlighted. Information about the financial decline of Henderson Manufacturing. Facts about casino charges and IRS forms that are already in the public record. Sarah is sharp. She understands immediately what I'm not saying. This is about your company, she says. It's not a question. It's about corporate governance, I correct. But yes, it's personal. I can't write about you specifically. Conflict of interest, too much liability. I'm not asking you to write about me. I'm asking you to write about patterns, about how family-run companies fail when the right people aren't in charge, when the board prioritizes nepotism over capability. She nods slowly. If I'm going to do this, I need to know everything, she tells me. So I tell her. Not about my plans for revenge, but about my father's company, about the consultant I know, about the financial decline, about the signs that something is deeply wrong in the current leadership. She takes notes. 2 weeks later, she publishes an article in a regional business journal. The cost of incompetence, when family ties trump expertise. It's technically about family businesses in general. But there's a section about manufacturing firms, unnamed companies, specific financial metrics that only apply to one place. The article mentions declining client retention, poor supply chain management, and the alarming trend of replacing experienced staff with less qualified family members. It runs on a Friday. By Monday, the board of Henderson Manufacturing is worried. By Wednesday, James Mitchell's firm receives a call from one of the board members asking for a preliminary assessment of the company's operational health. By Friday, James is on site. I don't see him. He doesn't know I engineered this, but he's there because the board is starting to understand that something is seriously wrong. His preliminary report takes 2 weeks. When it comes back, it's damning. He documents years of declining efficiency. He identifies specific decisions Robert Jr. made that cost the company millions. He highlights the exodus of quality clients and the lack of a coherent strategy to replace them. He also recommends the immediate replacement of the current CEO. The board meets emergency sessions. My Uncle Robert fights hard to keep Robert Jr. in place. It's a complicated position. Admitting that Robert Jr. is a failure means admitting that Uncle Robert made a bad decision when he elevated him. But the board is made up of people who care about the company's value more than they care about saving face. By month 10 of my preparation, Robert Jr. is forced to resign. The board, looking for someone to blame, temporarily brings in an interim CEO. They offer the permanent role to James Mitchell. He negotiates a contract that includes full autonomy over board decisions and hearing. He accepts with one condition. I need one person on my leadership team, he says. Someone who understands the company's original vision, someone who knows why this place matters. The board asks who. I'll send you a name, he says. That night, James calls me. Why did you do this? He asks. I could lie. I could tell him it's about saving my father's legacy. Instead, I tell him the truth. My Uncle Robert and my brother-in-law stole from my family. They destroyed what my father built, and they lied to my face when I tried to understand what happened. There's a long silence. If you come work for me, James says carefully, it can't be about revenge. It has to be about building something real, because if you're running on anger, it will destroy you before it destroys them. I know he's right. I'm not running on anger, I tell him. I'm running on clarity. The anger was the fuel, but the clarity is the destination. What's the destination? My father's company, operating at full potential with the right people running it. The people who stole money and destroyed value-facing consequences. And me, finally, building something of my own. Okay, he says. Then come be my vice president of operations. We rebuild this together, the right way. Part 7, Big Twist, 35 minutes. The twist isn't what I expect. 6 weeks after I start my new position at Henderson Manufacturing, I'm reviewing the company's historical payroll records. It's routine work. I'm trying to understand who the longest-serving employees are, who understands the original operational philosophy. I find a record that stops me. Victoria Chen. She's listed as having worked for Henderson Manufacturing from 2018 to 2022. She was a consultant on business strategy and market analysis. That was my father's department. That was his direct hire. I pull the employment file with numb fingers. There's a photo. I recognize her from her letters. She's beautiful in an understated way. She's probably 15 years younger than my father was. Her performance reviews are glowing. My father wrote, "Victoria's strategic insight has fundamentally changed how we approach client relationships. She understands our market better than anyone on staff. She's invaluable." He'd written that in 2019, 2 years before he had the heart attack, 3 years before the hidden will. I walk to James's office and close the door. "I need to ask you something about my father's business decisions," I tell him. He listens while I explain what I've found. "Your father was having an affair," James says. "It's not a question. He read the board notes, the family drama, the personal context." "Yes." "And you think Victoria Chen was part of the financial issues, that she was stealing from the company?" "I don't know. I'm trying to understand who my father was at the end of his life." James pulls up Victoria's employment file on his computer. "Look at this," he says. "Her salary, look at what she was actually paid. She was paid $52,000 a year for a consultant role. That's low for someone my father thought was invaluable." "Your father was probably protecting her," James says quietly. "If she was too valuable, the board would have questioned why. If she was paid too much, it would have looked suspicious. So he kept her salary low and her title vague." I think about the secret account. $200,000. Sitting for 8 years. "Do you think that money was for her?" I ask. "I don't know, but I think you should find out." I spend 3 days finding Victoria Chen. She's living 2 hours away in a different city. She's married now. She's running a nonprofit focused on business education for women in underserved communities. She's using the business skills my father taught her to help other people. I drive to her office without calling ahead. She doesn't recognize me when I walk in, which somehow makes sense. She knew of me only as the younger Henderson daughter, the quiet one she probably heard about secondhand. "My name is Margaret Henderson," I tell her. Her face goes pale. "Your father talked about you," she says carefully, "before he—" "I know about you too." She doesn't deny it. "I found your letters," I tell her. "I found the account with the money." "Margaret," she stands up, and I can see that she's nervous. "Your father and I ended things in 2020, years before." "Why?" "Because he loved your mother. Because he realized that what we had was a fantasy. He was running away from something, and I was an escape route. Neither of those is a real reason to build a life together." I sit down without being invited. "Why did he keep the account open? The $200,000? Victoria's expression shifts. She's deciding whether to trust me. "Your father was an extraordinary person," she says slowly. "But he was also someone who was terrified of being ordinary. He built a massive company because he needed to prove something to himself. He had affairs because he needed to feel like someone other than the person he'd already built." "So the money was what? Payment for you to disappear?" "No," she leans forward. "The money was for you." I don't understand. "In 2015, your father realized something," Victoria continues. "He realized that he'd spent so much time building his company that he'd never actually invested in his children's potential. David was already being groomed to join the law firm. Catherine was already married. But you were still searching for your own direction. He barely talked to me." "I know. He felt guilty about that. He talked to me about it. He told me he wanted to give you something real, but he didn't know how without it looking like charity. So he opened an account. He put the money there. He had this idea that eventually, when you were ready to do something on your own, he'd help you. He'd present it as an investment in a daughter he knew could do extraordinary things." "But he died." "Yes, and he never got to give it to you." I sit with this for a very long time. "Do you know what he would have wanted?" I ask. Victoria smiles sadly. "Yes, I do. He told me once that if anything ever happened to him, and if you were ever in a position where you understood how the business world actually works, He hoped you'd go back to Henderson Manufacturing. He said you were the only one of his children who was actually built for it. Part 8, Climax Confrontation, 35-38 minutes. I call a family meeting. My mother, David, Catherine, Uncle Robert, and Robert Jr. all meet in the conference room at Henderson Manufacturing. James is there too, in an official capacity. I've prepared for this moment. I have documents, printed, organized, impossible to misunderstand. Thank you all for coming, I begin. I know this is unusual, but there are some things that need to be addressed, and I need everyone to understand them clearly. My Uncle Robert is already defensive. He knows what's coming. I saw it in his face the moment I called the meeting. First, I'm going to explain what I've discovered about how this company was operated over the past 18 months. I walk through it methodically. James's preliminary assessment, the financial decline, the specific decisions that cost millions, the clients who left, the institutional knowledge that was lost. Second, I'm going to show you documentation of financial irregularities during the executorship of this estate. I present the consulting fees, the charges, the account that should have been disclosed to me immediately. And third, I say, I'm going to ask questions that need to be answered. I look directly at my Uncle Robert. The second account my father kept, the one with $200,000, when did you discover it? He doesn't answer. I'm asking because the deposit date is March 2015, and the account was opened in your presence as a signatory, so you would have known about it for 8 years. My mother makes a sound. It's small, but it's the sound of someone understanding something terrible. When the will was read, I continue, you told me that the distribution was fair, that my father wanted me to be independent, but you never mentioned this account. Why? My Uncle Robert's lawyer, hired hastily after he realized I was looking into things, stands up. This is hostile, he says. We're not doing this. Then we're doing this in court, I tell him. Robert Chen is here as my attorney, and we have documentation that you knowingly withheld assets from a beneficiary. That's fraud. My brother looks at me like he's seeing me for the first time. Margaret, my Uncle Robert says, and his voice is almost gentle. It's the voice of someone who's about to lie and wants you to believe he's sorry. Your father asked me not to. Don't, I say. Don't lie to me again. I'm not lying, your father said. My father never told you to hide that account from me because my father was dead when you hid it. He died before he ever had a chance to change his will. So you made a choice. You chose to protect your son's inheritance. You chose to make my father's company available to Robert Jr., even though you knew he wasn't capable of running it. Catherine is staring at her father. David is staring at me. You knew my father had a newer will, I continue. I found evidence of it. A handwritten draft dated January 2023 that allocated company profits to me. You found that will before the family ever did, and you chose not to file it. This is the moment where I'm guessing. I don't have absolute proof. But I have enough proof. And I'm watching my Uncle Robert's face to see if I'm right. He stands up. I'm done with this conversation, he says. Sir, I advise you not to leave, my attorney says. But he does leave anyway. Robert Jr. leaves immediately after. What's left is my mother, sitting very still. My brother and sister, looking at me like they don't recognize their younger sister anymore. And James, watching with the expression of someone who finally understands exactly how ruthless I can be. I have documentation, I tell David, suggesting that our company's decline over the past 18 months is directly attributable to mismanagement. I have recommendations from a highly respected consultant about how to stabilize and grow it again, and I'm going to ask you something directly. I pause. Do you want this company to be what Dad built, or do you want to let it fall apart so you don't have to deal with the guilt of profiting from his work? David's eyes fill with tears. I want it to be what he built, he says quietly. Then you're going to need to remove Uncle Robert from the board. You're going to need to formally apologize to me for the account, And you're going to need to let me do what Dad always wanted me to do. Which is, he asks, build something. Part 9. Revenge and Justice Payoff, 38-40 minutes. The lawsuit settles in my favor. My Uncle Robert and I reach an agreement. He acknowledges that the hidden account should have been disclosed to all beneficiaries immediately. He reimburses the estate 40% more than the original account value as a penalty for withholding it. He resigns from the board of Henderson Manufacturing. Robert Jr.'s employment contract is terminated for failure to meet board expectations. He receives a severance package because my brother is kinder than I am. But he doesn't receive a recommendation, and no one in the business community will touch him after the article Sarah Marcus writes about family-run companies in crisis. The hidden will surfaces in an unexpected place, a lawyer's archive. A junior associate finds it while researching something else for another case. It's authenticated. It's submitted to the court as evidence that my father intended to change his will but died before he could complete the legal process. The judge orders the distribution modified. I'm granted a percentage of Henderson Manufacturing's profits going forward. Not as much as I would have received if the newer will had been filed, but more than the house I never wanted. More importantly, I'm given controlling authority over how those profits are reinvested in the company. That's the real victory. 6 months after the lawsuit settles, I'm the chief operating officer of Henderson Manufacturing. I work with James Mitchell to rebuild the company my father built. We rehire the employees Robert Jr. pushed out. We reach out to the clients who left and remind them why they trusted my father's company in the first place. We modernize the supply chain, something my father always wanted to do but never found time for. We develop new products that the market is asking for. By the end of year 2, Henderson Manufacturing's revenue is 40% higher than when my father was running it. My mother cries when she sees the numbers. Not sad tears, proud tears. He would have loved this, she tells me. David apologizes to me, formally, over lunch with Catherine there as a witness. I should have known, he says. I should have questioned Uncle Robert. I should have asked about you. You were grieving, I tell him. We all were. But I don't absolve him completely. I make sure he understands that trust, once broken, takes years to rebuild. Catherine reaches out too. She invests her own money in a sustainability initiative that Henderson Manufacturing is launching. She tells me she's impressed by what I've built. I accept the compliment without making it easy for her. My Uncle Robert disappears into a different town and into a different business venture that eventually fails. I don't follow what happens to him closely. I don't have to. Failure is its own kind of punishment for someone who built their whole life on other people's work. As for me, I'm not happy. Happiness is a word for people whose lives are simple. I'm satisfied. I'm building something that will outlast me. I'm running a company that my father would have been proud to lead. I'm making decisions that matter, in an industry that's important, with capital that my father intended for me. And every time someone underestimates me because I'm quiet, or because I'm a woman, or because I don't talk loudly about my accomplishments, I think about the man who left me nothing. I think about how he should have known better. I think about how his ghost is more useful to me now than any inheritance could ever have been. It's a reminder that underestimation is a gift if you're smart enough to accept it. Epilogue, quiet ending, 40+ minutes. 2 years after my appointment as COO, I'm sitting in my father's old office at Henderson Manufacturing. It's different now, modern, clean, functional. I've kept his original desk, a mahogany piece he bought when the company was 5 years old, but I've updated everything else. There's a framed photo on my desk. It's from my mother's birthday party last month. My family is in it, all of us. David is smiling. Catherine is laughing. My mother is looking at the camera with the expression of someone who's finally at peace. I'm in the photo too, in the back, quiet, watching. A junior analyst comes to my office with a proposal. New market research for a possible expansion. The numbers are good. The strategy is solid. I read it carefully. I ask questions. I identify 3 potential problems that the analyst hasn't considered. I send her back to refine the proposal. This is what power looks like now. Not anger, not revenge, not the loud triumph of a woman who's destroyed her enemies. It's the quiet authority of someone who knows exactly what she's worth and who's built a world that reflects that value back to her. My attorney, Robert Chen, texts me. He wants to grab coffee. He's been offered a position as general counsel for a major corporation, and he wants my advice on whether to take it. I tell him yes. Because people who know you, people who helped you when it was dangerous to help you, those people deserve to succeed too. That's the lesson at the end of all this. It's not that revenge is satisfying, though sometimes it is. It's that building something real is more satisfying than destroying something false. My father left me nothing in his will, but he left me everything else. He left me his obsession with excellence, his ability to see potential, his understanding that a business is only as strong as the people who run it. And he left me a company that needed someone exactly like me to save it. I sit at my desk and review quarterly projections. The company is growing, the employees are loyal, the board actually listens when I speak. And somewhere in a filing cabinet in the basement, there's a handwritten will dated January 2023, expressing the confidence of a dead man in the only daughter who deserved his faith. I could frame it. Instead, I just remember it. And I build.